say, Emmanuel Macron, with this election, does that make France less hostile to the financial sector?
The election of Emmanuel Macron is a very good news for France, for Europe, as well as for Paris as an international financial market. Emmanuel Macron has already been a very strong supporter for the Paris Financial Center when he was Minister of the Economy by initiating the first reforms concerning the labor rules, and we are more than confident that he will accelerate the reforms and that he will deliver.
Still, we're already seeing a few protests against the labor law reform that he wants to implement in the first 100 days of his presidency. What are his challenges, getting majority, and how can he succeed in passing through reforms?
I think a big difference between Emmanuel Macron and his predecessors is that he's much more concerned by the social questions. He has a social fibre, and he likes to explain what he's doing. When he was implementing the so-called Macron law last year, he has spent much time to explain to the parliament what were the objectives and why the measures that he wanted to implement were good for France. And we are very confident that he will continue to do that, and like he did in the TV debate with Mrs. Le Pen, and that he has many qualities to make that French people will understand, and they share now the necessity to accelerate the reforms.
But we also have to bear in mind that Marine Le Pen did twice better than her father in 2002, and she had the support of more than 10 million French people. How can he really push through the labor reform and then other economic reforms without creating social violence in France and resistance?
You know what? Each time I've spoken with your colleagues from the United States or from London since the beginning of this year, everybody told me, you are very kind, but we didn't predict the Brexit in the UK and we got the Brexit. We didn't predict Mr. Trump and we got Mr. Trump. You will get Mrs. Le Pen. And each time I have said the same thing. The French people are quite clever with their votes. They will put an extreme party, certainly for the first round, but in any case they will reject the extreme for the second tour. And now we have a very business-minded president, and this is a reason for which we are very confident for the future.
Your job is to lure some bankers, some workers from London to Paris after Brexit. How is that going to help? Do you want Emmanuel Macron to be tough in the Brexit negotiations so Paris can benefit?
First, we have met more than 200 international banks and investors, asset management companies in London, in New York, in Tokyo. And everybody was interested by developing activities in France in the context of the Brexit, because they have to rebalance part of their activities to the EU. The most important obstacle was the French election. Everybody wanted to wait the result of the election. So now we are at the beginning of a new period. And Mr. Macron has taken some engagements to accelerate the reforms on the three major topics which interest international market players. First, labor rules. Second, social costs. And finally, implement a better stability in the French regulatory environment.